Geometry, Chapter 11, Review, Circle Basics. Let's check out these true or false. The circle, the sum of y and 7 squared plus x squared equals 12, has a center of 0, 7. Now this is usually written with the x first. This is x minus a number, 0, squared. 0 checks out. And then this is y minus a negative 7. Negative 7 checks out. That is the center. Just to remind you, general equation of a circle looks like this, where h, k are the center, and r is the radius. Number 2, this is y minus a negative 1. It's the y value of the center. X minus a positive 3, that's the x value of the center, also true. Number 3, is this in the right form? I mean, usually these are other way around, but we got 2 perfect squares there, were added together, equals 7. Well, the radius is going to be the square root of that, which is what this is saying, so that's true as well. Number 4, center is going to be negative 1, negative 2. Wow, we are on a true feast right now. Number 5, what's the radius? Well, this is in the proper form. The radius is the square root of 4, which is 2. Well, they're all true. Don't assume they're all going to be true on the test. That would be a fool's errand. Choose the best choice by writing the letter on the blank. Which equation represents a circle centered at negative 3, 8, and has a radius of 7? Well, we can eliminate this one right away, because if the radius is 7, then the right side's got to be 7 squared. So these are all 49s, so that checks out. I hope it's not D, because that is in a weird form that I don't know what to do with. Since the x value is negative 3, it would be x minus a negative 3, which is x plus 3. And this would be y minus 8 quantity squared. So that checks out. The answer is B. Done and done. Number 7. If the radius is 3, this should be 3 squared, which it is. That doesn't eliminate anything. The center is at 0, negative 2. That means we're going to have an x squared plus a y minus a negative 2, which is a y plus 2. And that is looking like D. Number 8, radius is 8. So it has to equal 64 because that's 8 squared. That eliminates A and B. Since the center has an x value of 3, it's x minus 3 quantity squared, which B shows that. And then this will be y minus a negative 1, which is the same as y plus 1. B also shows that. So B is the correct answer. Number 9, which represents the circle with negative 3, 5. And I always start with the radius because it just seems like it's quicker. If the radius is square root of 5 and you square that to get the constant, that's going to be just positive 5. So it could be either of these two. This is x minus a negative 3, which is going to be the same as x plus 3. And this is y minus 5 squared. And that fits with A. Number 10, determine the circle that has a radius between 5 and 7. Well, that's interesting. We only have to consider, so all of these are in the proper form. They're all in standard form of a circle. Just have to look at the radius. If it's between 5 and 7, that means the constant has to be between 5 squared and 7 squared. That's between 5 and 49, 25 and 49. No, 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 yes. The answer is C. I like that question. Interesting. Instead of saying constant here, we could say r squared. Determine the circle that has a radius that's between 10 and 13. Well, 10 squared has to be less than the radius squared, which has to be less than 13 squared. So 100 has to be less than r squared, which has to be less than 169er. Don't know how the spacing got messed up. My apologies. So we're looking at 121. It's the only number between 100 and 169. 12, what's the equation of the circle on this graph? I would once again start with the radius. 1, 2, 3, 4. The radius is 4. This number here is r squared. So that means this is not the answer. The center is at 3, 2, which means we should have an x minus 3 quantity squared. Eliminates this one. Eliminates this one. It's got to be this one. And then we have a y minus 2 quantity squared. So we're looking for D for number 12. 13, what's the equation of the circle? Start with the radius again. We're going up 3. 3 squared is 9, so this is not the answer. The center is at negative 2, 0, so it's x minus a negative 2, which is x plus 2. So that tells us we're looking at D. And the other thing would be y minus 0, which is y squared. So that checks out. 14. We're going to have to complete the square on this little fella. So if we take x squared plus 4x, complete the square, you take half of 4, which is 2, and square it, which is 4, plus y squared minus 16y. Take half of negative 16, which is negative 8, squared is 64. If I move the 52 to this side, it would be a negative 52. And then we have to add a 4 and a 64. Add to one side, you got to add to the other. This right side becomes 16. The left side is the sum of x and 2 squared, plus the difference of y and 8 squared. That's looking like that's going to be A. Ooh, this is going to be good. Got to complete the square for this. We're going to have x squared minus 3x. And we're going to complete the square. We're going to have y squared minus 8y. We got to complete the square. If I move this to the right side, it's going to be a positive 7/4. To complete the square, I'm going to have to take half of negative 3, which would be 3 over 2, and square it. I'm not going to actually square it. I'm just going to write that I'm squaring it. If I do that to the left, I got to do it to the right as well. So I'm going to add a 3 over 2 squared. Then I have to take half of negative 8, which is negative 4, and square it, and that's going to be 16. Do it to the left, I got to do it to the right. On the left, to factor this perfect square trinomial, take the square root of x squared, which is x, sign of the middle term. The square root of 3 halves squared is just 3 halves. Plus square root of y squared is y, sign of the middle term is minus, the square root of 16 is 4. Whoops, square root of y squared is y, not y squared, equals. Now the right side, I got a 7/4. When you square a fraction, you square the top and the bottom, so 3 halves is going to be 9/4. And then I want to get common denominators with a 16, so I'm going to change 16 to 64 over 4. That's equivalent to 16. It's essentially multiplying this by 1 in the form of 4 over 4. Now the left isn't going to change, the right 9 and 64 is 73. 73 and 7 is 80. 80 over 4 is 20. I'm looking for an equation that's like this. That is C. That's a tough problem. But hey, you're in honors, so what are you going to do? Supposed to graph these? I will try to color code this. 16 has a center of positive 5, positive 4. It's in quadrant 1. The radius is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go up 4, left 4, down 4. It's going to be a little something like this. Label the center 5, 4, and the radius is 4. So that's number 16. Number 17, the center is going to be 0, negative 7. And the radius is the square root of 9, which is 3. So we go to the right 3, to the left 3 of the center, up 3, down 3. If I connect those to make a circle, it looks something like this. This is number 17. Center is 0, negative 7. And the radius is 3. 18. Its center is negative 6, positive 2. And the radius is the square root of 16, which is 4. So from the center, I'm going to go 4 in each direction, horizontally and vertically. Connect those to make your circle. Looks a little something, something like that. You don't have to color yours in. I'm just doing it because that's how I get my kicks. The center is negative 6, 2, and the radius is 4. This was number 18. Last one, number 19. Center is at positive 6, negative 4. It should be here. The radius is the square root of 4. Square root of 4 is 2. Number 19. Center is 6, negative 4. Radius is 2. All right, good enough. 20. Determine the center and radius of the given circles. Fractions in this one, which I'm sure does not make you happy. We have to complete the square twice. We got put our x terms together in a trinomial, add our y terms together in a trinomial. If you're thinking I don't have a trinomial, you're right, we got to make it one. To complete the square, we take half of b is negative 9, and square it. So technically that's negative 9 over 2 squared, but if you square it, it's always going to be positive. So let's just not complicate the signs. The next trinomial, it's half of negative 7, which is negative 7 over 2 squared. If you square it, it's going to end up being positive. Let's not complicate it with the signs. You add something to the left side of the equation, you got to add it to the right. So it's 9 over 2 squared plus 7 over 2 squared. On the left, these become perfect squares. Square root of x squared is x. Sign of the middle term is subtract. The square root of 9 over 2 squared is 9 over 2. Square root of y squared is y. Take the sign of the middle number. The square root of 7 over 2 squared is 7 over 2. On the right, if you square a fraction, you square the top and the bottom. So 9 over 2 squared is 81 fourths. 7 over 2 squared is 49 fourths. Left side's as good as we're going to get it. The right side, if we add the numerators, when you add fractions, you add the tops to the bottoms the same. You're going to get 144 over 4, which is 36. So the center is 9 over 2, 7 over 2. And the radius is the square root of 36, which is 6. Last one. Supposed to find the center and radius. To do that, we need to put this in the standard form of a circle. We have x squared plus 2x plus, whoa, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. We got some like terms here we need to get together. I'm going to add 4x to both sides. It's going to give me x squared plus 4x. I'm going to subtract 4y from both sides. It's going to give me y squared plus 4y. And then the right side is going to equal 2. Let me just make sure that I move these terms around correctly. Yeah, it didn't. Say what? Let me start over and let's not worry about completing the square. Let's add 4x to both sides. Let's subtract 4y from both sides. There's no like term on the left. And then that's going to equal 2. That is looking better. So now let's worry about completing the square. Half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. Add it to one side, add it to the other. Half of negative 4 is negative 2. Square that, you get 4. If you add it to one side, you got to add it to the other. This is going to be x plus 3 quantity squared plus y minus 2 quantity squared. 2 plus 9 plus 4 is 15. The center is going to be negative 3, 2, and the radius is the square root of 15. 15 is prime, so we cannot simplify it. This concludes the review. Test tomorrow over Chapter 11. Circle basics. A lot of completing the square and general equation of a circle.